Hey, hello and welcome everybody. This is DH Thorne coming at you live on this beautiful Thursday evening. I hope you guys are all looking forward to a nice rant-filled session where I talk about whatever the hell is on my mind, and turns out hell's not on my mind today. I'm actually in a pretty good mood the last couple days. But yeah, so welcome everybody. Let's give the usual, let's do the, how many of you guys remember that old TV show? I think it was Romper Room, where they would do the little magic mirror and they'd say hello to everybody. So let's do the hellos to everybody. So magic mirror, called YouTube. Let us see who's here. Kat Jones, woo, excited for the stream. What's up, Kat? It's been a little minute. Good to see you. Of course, we see you all the time on Discord. And for those of you who don't know, we do have a Discord dedicated to followers of this channel, and several other cool community, people are linked in there. Eddie's there. Most of the people here are actually there. Jen's there. So it's a pretty good place to go. It's not super active as of late, unless you count me and Eddie, riffing on each other, and some cool photos from Kat and some other people. Jen, of course, posts there quite a bit, at least her content she puts there. So it's a pretty good server. Actually, Fleshy and I were talking about starting up the movie nights again and the game nights again, probably in June-ish. At least I'll do it, because then my wife should be more available, so she might participate too. But sometime probably in June-ish, I'll probably do Friday nights like we were doing. So those are fun. I've actually been kind of hoping to make the first movie night for the Discord server that old movie Knight Riders that was produced and directed or whatever by George Romero. Written, produced. It's like a cult classic. It's really kind of, it's hard to explain. Basically, it's like a Renaissance fair with motorcycles, and as weird as the premise is, Romero is such a good filmmaker in his own way that it really actually works. Like, it actually works. It's a good fucking movie. That's right. Eddie knows, a sorely underrated Romero classic. Absolutely. What's his name? Stephen King makes like he often does, because they're kind of friends, makes an appearance. Of course, Stephen King's going off his rocker politically as of late, but it doesn't mean his writing is bad or that you shouldn't enjoy it. I don't believe in cancel culture unless they do something like, rhyming with Edo, you know what I mean? Something like that is different. If they just have different views than mine, even if I think they're ridiculous, and I mock the ever-loving fuck out of them, I don't believe in cancel culture. If you want to boycott something, I get it. I'm not saying don't boycott. In fact, maybe we'll have a little discussion on the difference between boycotts versus cancel culture, because there is a fundamental difference. But so let's see. Eddie's here. He says, "Sup, kids? Atropa's here." What's up, Atropa? The last time when you said that you look forward to the Thursdays almost like a mental health thing, I was like, oh man, now I got to do streams every Thursday if people are feeling that way. That's like, of course, I can only imagine how bad things are if, like, you really look forward to these streams that much, because I think I'm crazy. So I don't know what you guys see in me sometimes. I'm kidding. I do. I'm very arrogant. Jen Vatsa, what's up, nerds? Jen's here. Wonderful friend of the channel. Jen is like living proof that people can disagree and still be like best friends. Like that's an important thing. So I respect the shit out of Jen for that, especially in this current climate that we're in. So that's really cool. Joffrey, what's up? Says hello, everyone. And Jay Baldale, hail and good evening, children of darkness. Yes, indeed. We are gods with the flaming demons. Very nice. Eddie says, let's go. Kelly's here. What's up, Kelly? It's been a minute, although I think I see you almost every week, but welcome back as always. Hello, everyone, and good evening. Spending the evening at work as usual. Let's see. Let's keep scrolling here. Wow, we got some newer people, I think. Blade of Ashtaroth. Hey! Good evening, all, they said in a follow-up comment. Gogo's here. What's up, Gogo? It's been a minute. He says, hi, legend. How are you? I'm good tonight, at least at the moment. We'll see what happens in a little bit. But yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Ajna is here with the cancel the light workers. And hi, everyone. We love Ajna. Ajna's been a long time frequent chatter, and Ajna always has good info too. Ajna knows, I think, maybe more firsthand about certain things than I do. So Jen says, give your time, cancel culture. Given time, I think is what she meant to say. Cancel culture will cancel itself once it realizes it's fascism. Yeah. Well, okay, let me be clear what fascism is, okay? And what's offensive about it. Fascism is fascism because it has a nationalistic component, but it's authoritarian and tyrannical. So nationalism is often poo-pooed by people because there is a socio-political push to globalize everything. So having any kind of sense of country and national pride is sort of frowned upon, and they've kind of created this thing where if you're proud of your country, you like your country, or you simply feel like it's your home, and so when it's your home, you want to take care of it, like somehow that's bad. Somehow that's fascist. What's fascist is authoritarian, rulers that use usually nationalism to promote fascistic ideas. So to be a fascist, a literal fascist, you have to be a tyrant that uses nationalistic rhetoric to encourage fascistic activity. So technically, as a pedant as I am, I wouldn't give cancel culture or that far fundamentalist woke perspective the label of fascist, but they are no different. It's the same energy, just a different reflection of it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, you do, Mel. Usually, colloquially speaking, most people, when they say fascist, they mean authoritarian. That's what most people mean. They don't know that there's a difference, but exactly, you know what I mean? It's exactly that. So it's out of control. And it's not long for the world. Okay. One way or the other, it's really not long for the world. The Western world, especially certain countries, are not going to have it much longer. And I just hope the pushback from the people that are like actual almost fascists, like hardcore conservatives, I hope they're going to sit this out, but I don't think they will. I think they're going to end up, probably pushing back, and then you're going to see me turn into a liberal fucking quick, because as much as I am opposed to certain extremes of that agenda on the left, I consider myself a fucking liberal. I'm a libertarian, so 90% of the fundamental issue I agree with. It's just, I don't believe in canceling people or saying that you're a bigot just because you don't agree with how the rainbow flag is used in June. That doesn't make you a bigot, okay? There's a lot of people that I know and love that are LGBTQ plus IA, all that stuff, that are opposed to, as I think Jen has put it, rainbow capitalism. It's terrible. It's a terrible, anyway, I don't want to make the whole stream about this stuff, but it did come up pretty quick, didn't it? Let's see. Steve Kinsey says, every time I join your stream, my phone's on the verge of death. Plug it in, Steven. Vampirize your friend's battery pack quickly. Welcome, Steven. It's good to see you. Christian, Heinekanian. Hey, what's up, brother? I appreciate your wonderful, kind comments. We just got the pings just before the stream. Thank you for your kind review on my Etsy page. I still intend to send you something. It may not be, well, I don't want to say too much. I do intend to send you something in PDF that's not super long, that to make up for certain things, and I hope you enjoy it. Tesla Demerbo. We're gonna turn that X into the French X. Tesla Demerbo. Greetings, everyone. Differences aside, how will you deal with the soon-to-be U.S. invasion of the borders? Good and bad Mexicans, good and bad Nicaraguans. All right, do I have to? All right, I will. I will touch on this briefly. No, I am not for open borders. simultaneously, I am not stupid. I know what's being done to these other countries. They're being imploded by globalism and by nefarious actors, the deep state, their economies, their countries are being wrecked. And then the innocent people that are living there, that are suffering, are being told by whatever, propaganda or each other or our own, go to the United States. That they will welcome you because our borders are open. So they come over, and the vast majority of them are innocent victims of the ongoing bullshit around the world. So I don't blame them. The vast majority of them are good people that are struggling. I know some. I know some in my life. I don't love the fact that, you know, they get around taxes, and I don't love all that. But I don't hate them. I think that I'm not saying that they should necessarily be here or shouldn't be here per se. I just wish that there was a way to do this where they don't just come in completely free of any vetting or anything. So I want them to go through the same process that any citizen should go through when coming to live in a country or stay for a while. That doesn't mean that I don't want them here or that I want it to be hard. If you come here and you don't have a criminal record and you are, you have prospects especially, or, you know, you are, so for example, the way our system's set up right now, the people who try to come over the legal way usually are people with educations, people with money. So they feel like they should be able to come here legally, but they face so many roadblocks because one side of the aisle doesn't want anybody coming in, you know, I'll let you decide why. But the other side creates a completely open border for people who are not trying to come over that way. Because if you come over illegally, you're not going to be a doctor. You're not going to be a lawyer. You're not going to own businesses and all that. Not legally anyway, not in most places. So the people who want to come over, they have money, they have training, education, whatever, they have a hard time getting in here. It takes them years sometimes and lots of money and all kinds of shit to get in here. It's a real hassle. But then the people that are unskilled and are needy or dependent, that's not saying they won't work hard or they're not good people, but they're coming over with nothing, with mostly empty pockets. And they're coming over, they're being, you know, rape ganged the whole way. Not all of them, but a substantial amount. Okay. A lot of them. I know people. Anybody who's going to sit there and say, Thorne's talking out his ass. I live in a sanctuary city area. We've got tons of people here. And I will say I have close contact with quite a few, and they're not bad people. And they tell me what's going on too. And I hear both sides of this. So I'm not some kind of biggity person who doesn't want them here, but I do want them to come through in a legal way. That's just my opinion. So, but that's not the end of the story, is it? Because if you think in terms like I do, left-hand terms, shall we say, you recognize that a border situation like we have is a real easy way to get sicarios and mercenaries and globalist soldiers to come through along with them. If we're talking millions of people potentially a year, and only 1% of that is potentially either gang, you know, enforcers and gang people and or mercenaries and operatives for other countries and shit. That's your good intentions of having an open border and helping people, while noble, is it's you're basically telling them just to inject poison right into your soul, because you're letting in, and I guarantee you that's happening. I absolutely guarantee it, because MS-13 does it. That's exactly what they do, and they're not alone. And they're bringing all this stuff through. Okay? People want to make it a racist thing to not want this. There's nothing racist about it. Every country has a right to say that's it. You know, no more room at the inn. For whatever reason it wants. We don't get mad when other countries do it. You know, we don't get mad when Ukraine wants to push Russia out. Not that I blame them or anything, right? Why are we getting mad when people want to tighten that up here? My goal would be to have basically not an open border, but a really, streamlined process for everybody that wants to come here. I wouldn't necessarily turn all these people away. See, that's the difference. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be here. That's not how I'm wired. I don't think that way. That doesn't mean that it's not problematic. It doesn't mean that, and when I say problematic, I mean economically and things like that. But, that's a different issue. And that's not necessarily a reason to say nobody comes in or anything. It's not that, oh, there's too many, I don't know, there's too many brown people here, we need to kick them out, there's not enough white people anymore. No, I don't think that way. I'm not wired that way. I'm not threatened by it at all. I don't think that way. So unfortunately, a lot of people do. That is a fact. And sometimes I make the mistake of thinking other people think like me, or that people that agree with me about things agree with me about everything. And that's not the case, obviously. But genuinely and generally speaking, this could be solved if countries like the United States and most of Europe and China, those weren't dicking around in these third world countries, fucking them over intentionally, installing dictators and puppet, shit, and keeping them down economically and playing games with all that shit. Half these countries would probably sort their shit out. Another reason they might sort their shit out is if people couldn't come here. Those good people that are trying to come here and make a life for themselves would have to stay there and fix it. I'm not saying that's how it should happen. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that's how it would happen if it wasn't like this. So there's so much nuance here that when you hear people say, oh, you're racist if this, or you're a patriot if that, this binary means you're being mind fucked. Okay. And if you can't see through the mind fuck, you're a low info voter, you're a low info opinion, and that's not healthy. And that's why we're in the situation we're at, because they make these things, they're hitting us with so many complicated issues all at the same time that unless you make it your job, it's really hard to keep track of the nuance and have a nuanced opinion that isn't a binary of brown people bad, brown people good, white people bad, white people good. It's really hard to have a logical opinion these days because they don't want you to. They really want everybody just on that childish, infantile way of looking at things. So, is the border being invaded? Yeah, it is. As a student of history and what the United States has done to other countries and to destabilize them, that's exactly what's happening here. It's intentional. This isn't a bunch of feel-good people on the left who just want them in and a bunch of evil people on the right that don't. This is clearly, this is not an organic situation that's just happening this way. This is being done intentionally. They did it to Europe already. They're doing it here. They're trying to do it other places. And unfortunately, because of the low information nature of most people, they've managed to convince people by and large that if you're for it, you're, a weirdo on the left. And if you're against it, you're a bigot, and we can't have a rational conversation about it and come to terms without slapping each other or something, So that's where I'm going to end that topic. It's a little bit of a radioactive topic right now, but fuck it. Do I look like I give a shit? All right, let's see. Kat asks, at what point does nationalism go too far? Well, think of it like your home. I consider the nation like my home. That means that I'm going to do my best to take care of my home. I'm going to make sure that everybody that's in it is healthy and has food and has a nice place to live and a nice place to sleep and the best of the best possible. Okay. What I'm not going to do is go to my neighbor and say, fuck you, my house is better than yours, and start attacking them. What I'm not going to do is when someone comes to my house and be like, well, you're not from my house, get the fuck out. Okay, so in this analogy, I guess you can see where I'm going with this. It doesn't mean that you look down on everybody else. It just means you have some sense that when I say pride, I don't mean like egoic pride. I mean pride in the old-fashioned sense of like having pride in your work, having pride in your job, having pride in your family, trying to make it a better place, trying to treat it well. So that's what nationalism is supposed to be. The shadow of nationalism is when you become bigoted about it and chauvinistic about it, not in a positive way, but in all the negative ways. And that's pretty obvious. This is what I mean by we have been brainwashed into these simplistic, childish binaries where nationalism wrong, globalism good, or globalism bad, nationalism good, or whatever your binary is, and there's no nuance in there. No one has any, everyone has been just taught this stupid Coke versus Pepsi mentality about everything. Pretty much everything. And this is what drives a person like me crazy, because I don't have many issues that I'm like that about. And when I find out, usually I suffer and I eventually change. But most people don't. Most people double down on their binary idiocy. And it's really gross. You can be completely nationalistic, and that doesn't mean that you look down on others or treat other people bad, or it's about race or something. You know, it's like if you have a sports team, you want your sports team to win, you know? Well, that's maybe a bad analogy because that implies everybody else has to lose. But a good sportsman doesn't look at it that way, right? A good sportsman, it's not about making the other side lose. It's about playing the best you can and living up to your own sense of what's best. So to me, nationalism becomes, as Kat's asking, it goes too far when it stops being about just making your country as good as possible and starts becoming about excluding people and looking down on other cultures, attacking other cultures, and all the bad stuff, like half the shit that America just does anyway. You know, if we didn't have our finger up everybody's ass, half this world would probably be better anyway. All right, so let me scroll a little bit. Hopefully that was a good answer for you. Joke Biden is here. Oh shit. Oh, fuck. Don't sniff any of the people around here, Joke. Don't you dare. Don't you dare sniff anybody. They're all good people here. They don't like being, well, maybe some, I think Eddie likes being sniffed, but kidding, Eddie. All right, let's see. Eddie says, left libertarian for the win. I can respect, I don't agree with, but I can respect and agree with anybody whose primary thing is libertarianism. If you're a left libertarian, I think that's a little paradoxical, but I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying, to me, it seems that way. I don't think they're as compatible as people make it. But if your primary thing is libertarianism, then depending upon what your version of leftism means, I'm okay with it. I'm fine with it. I support you. I think you should have your chance. I think you should have every right to try to encourage a civilization with safety nets and things. I'd rather it be private, but because I don't trust any centralized government, which what usually has to happen to make leftism work, you need a central authority to redistribute. But that's not a rule. That's just how it usually ends up going. Just like capitalism, free market capitalism is an ideal, just like communism could be called an ideal. And what happens is assholes get involved and turn it into a system of authoritarian control. So if libertarianism is the centerpiece, then really we're just arguing about economics. Because leftism isn't liberalism and rightism isn't bigotry. That's a stupid thing that has been injected, again, childish binary. It's the real life doesn't work that way. You know, people, I consider myself extreme right, but I'm extreme libertarian as well. So I'm not a bigot. I'm just, when I say right wing, I mean, I want tiny government, the smallest government reasonably possible to prevent any form of tyranny. So you need some government to prevent crimes and wars or defend against those things. But that's a minarchist libertarian position, and that's completely compatible with the kind of leftism that I usually hear people like Jen and a few others saying they like. It's completely compatible because no one's going to stop you from setting up your community with a share and share alike attitude where everybody helps each other and you have some sort of an organization that helps with that. You know, you incorporate your own county or something, you know, and so long as it's totally voluntary, who gives a shit? We're arguing about how we count the beans, guys. That's a stupid argument to turn into an identitarian tribal issue. Okay. If freedom, meaning libertarianism, is the number one issue for you, then I don't care how you count the beans. I don't care. I prefer this way, but I don't ultimately care. Because what we've got right now sucks. So it doesn't matter. Anything would be a fucking improvement over this. Anything. I think we can all agree on that. Left, right, center, everywhere in every direction. So we need to figure out what our common ground as Americans, as people are, whatever. Grammar sucks tonight. We need to find our common ground again. We used to have common ground. It used to be we lived in the same country. We had a sense of nationalistic pride and respect for each other. We believed that everybody wanted the same basic thing. We'd argue about, you know, social safety nets and what to do with the border. But the primary goal was to make it better. So yeah. Snake 9 says, personally, I love the political streams. Okay, I just worry because my primary focus has always been mysticism, magic, spirituality, and I try to approach these things from that. You know, yes, I could talk about things like what's MAGA, what's Antifa, what's Trump, I don't think that's productive, really. You know, I like what Russell Brand is doing. I would really be sad to learn if he's an operative on the other side, but I don't feel that way about him. He's so busy exposing the same things I try to expose. He's got to be on the right side, and he's a leftist. You know, he's the kind of leftist that I respect. He's not the authoritarian leftist. He's a libertarian leftist. I respect that without any hesitation. So if the left of America was Russell Brand, I might even think about joining it. Okay? That's all I'm saying. I'm not a leftist, but I respect that so fucking much because that's where I cut my teeth in politics, is being adversarial and skeptical of every form of authority there is, even the ones that are good, which I don't know which ones are good, but you know what I'm saying. Like, I'm literally like, when I see a company, I go, all right, if it's not a mom and pop, even if it is, I tend to not trust the owners of it, the corporation. I tend to not trust it. I've worked for enough corporations. I know they all suck. When I see corporate news, I know that they're lying to me. When I see government, I know they're lying to me. So I'm like founding father mentality. I look at authority with contempt, disdain, or skepticism, usually in that order. And contempt and disdain are not really that different. So it's really just contempt, disdain, and and skepticism. So I'm skeptical of anybody who wants power, anybody who has power. I would be skeptical of me sitting here as some sort of an authority on anything. I would have a little bit of skepticism about me. Okay? You should too. None of you guys should be like, oh, Thorne said, no, fuck that. Figure out what you think. And if it agrees with what I'm saying, yeah, salute the flag when I run it up the flagpole. Don't, use me as a source, sure. But don't trust me, because even if I don't mean to lie to you, I might have bad information. So be skeptical. Being a skeptic is so important. Just don't be a dogmatic skeptic. That's all. A dogmatic skeptic is closed-minded. An open-minded skeptic is somebody who says, okay, maybe, but probably not. They listen, but they question. Well, how many of you question your political party? I question the people that I agree with. I question MAGA, Trump, libertarianism, Rand Paul, all the people that I consider, the ones I prefer. I question the hell out of them. And I'm always like, there is no such thing as loyalty with me when it comes to that. You fuck up the right thing, I'm off the fucking boat. You know what I mean? It doesn't, I'm not going to purity spiral. So I'm not sitting here, you make one mistake and I'm gone. I'm more along the lines of there's certain issues which are telling if you don't treat them a certain way. First Amendment, Second Amendment, all that stuff. If you try to infringe on either, especially the First and Second Amendment, particularly, in any way, I immediately have, a stick up my ass. I immediately go, all right, so like when Trump banned bump stocks, my only reason for giving that a pass is simply because it's, in fact, I almost didn't. I'm going to be honest, I almost didn't. Is that it's really not something that improves the effectiveness of anything. It's not, it's sort of a toy. And I don't think it's right. I think it was a bad move. That's one of the things that will always stick with me and go, well, why did you do that? Who were you placating with that? Why did you do that? So I'm skeptical that far of him. And if he had another strike that was like that, I'd probably be off. Except for one thing. As far as I can see it, he's the only leader that stands a chance of stopping what's going on. And I got news for you. It's probably not going to even come to that. But that's a stream for next year. We'll just leave it at that. Jen says, I think DH and I fell off the political spectrum and are floating around in the unplugged. So no, politically, I'm still on the same spot I was. That hasn't changed. The only thing is that for a little while there in 2020 and 21 in particular, because of all the mania, I was doubling down on loyalty because I felt threatened. I was shaken by what was going on. I didn't expect it, I'm usually very prescient. I don't like when I make a bad prediction, my ADD, OCD, whatever little bit of autism I got, all of that shit just goes through the roof, because that means that whatever intuitive matrix I got going on in my head wasn't working. That means that I fucked up if I didn't predict something pretty well. Like, I don't usually get it 100% right, but I'm usually in the right direction. I'm usually right in the direction, not in the necessarily specific. And I was completely wrong in the direction. I really didn't anticipate. And I think that's because I let my attachments get the better of me, and it was wishful thinking, not prescient thinking. I think I'm better on the prescience now, but we'll see. I could still be wrong. Yeah, Eddie's got a good take. I'm going to default to my position since 1990. Make it much easier to get in. Completely agree. And throw the book at anyone here illegally. Also agree. I think that's fair. Make it much easier to get in. Just the background check issue, I think, would be a sticking point because a lot of these countries don't have really reliable background checks. But at the same time, I think we can tell when they have a real bad record. I think a lot of that can be figured out, so there's got to be a way, and I think there is a way. I just think that they want this issue to be an issue for political reasons. It's a football. It's another football issue. At least that's what it was. And now it's a way to fuck the country over. So I don't think that those people, when I say that that's an invasion, I don't mean those people are an invasion. I mean that it's a globalist maneuver that's like an invasion. It's an invasion of people that, I mean, I know for a fact that it's being caused, their problems are being caused on purpose. And that you can't change my mind on that. Yes, they create their own problems too in these other countries, but that I think that they might be able to get their way out of it if we would either step back and stop fucking with them and setting up our own interests in their countries, or made it our job to stabilize them in a way that helps them. But I think that's interference, so I don't want to do that. You know, I'm a non-interventionist by nature. That's a generally libertarian perspective. Leave people alone, let them evolve, let them figure it out. Be an example, offer help and aid, sure. Give them, you know, if they're having a pandemic or something that could affect everybody, go and help. If they're all starving, if we've got surplus, I don't have a problem with you know, I mean, it doesn't sound very libertarian of me, because I'm usually libertarians are very like, no, we don't give anything away for free. But that doesn't mean that there can't be ways to help them, you know? So Stephen Kinsey asks, I wonder how individualism will work out in a multi-planet situation if we ever make it that far. Ooh, that's an interesting thought. I think the big issue is these other planets, because of the way they would have to, let's say it was planets, right? Because I anticipate it's going to be space stations and like moon bases more than planets, because planets requires, you know, either terraforming or setting up domes or subterranean, and that assumes people would want to live that way. I think people are more likely to want to live in, you know, O'Neill cylinders or something. I think that's way more likely. Build grand, you know, cities in the sky, like was mentioned in the was it the Puranas in the ancient Vedic texts. Now you got me. Like that I think would work. And the problem though is that those societies are going to have to be very regulated, and that means authoritarianism. It's not like the old days where you could just, you know, well, that's the frontier that way and that's civilization that way. If I go that way far enough, I'm on my own. Nobody can help me, but no one can tell me what to do either. When it comes to this, the only way to colonize space is with, you know, industrial, corporatist government asset, which means strict control and authoritarianism. It's kind of unavoidable. So I anticipate that those who go off into these colonies, unless there is some sort of an Enlightenment Part 2 that sets up a situation where those colonies couldn't be that way, they have to have comparable constitutions to the United States, or better. Better would be nice. You know, if you could set something up like that, okay, maybe. But we all know that's probably not going to happen. Too many people want power, and we haven't evolved past it. You know, one of the things I was thinking the other day is that our world has the technology now where we no longer necessarily have to live under these archaic systems of authority like we have. Okay, there's ways now, since our communication is the way it is, if they'd stop meddling with it, you know, which brings up another topic, which I might not cover, but I kind of want to. If they'd stop fucking with and censoring and manipulating and algorithmically throttling and dicking around with the internet, unless you're on an independent thing. Speaking of which, I will be starting a Rumble channel probably next week. And if I do, I'll probably be streaming on Rumble. And what I'll probably do is I'll start making it so I only talk politics on the Rumble channel. So I'll go off YouTube after like an hour or two. And then if we want to talk politics, we go to Rumble. This way they stop throttling me on YouTube eventually. So, yeah, because I think I need to get to, you know, dip my toe into Rumble. It's growing a lot of big names are going there. And as things, unfortunately, one of the problems is it's like BitChute, it's very conservative, and I don't like that. And, you know, we have to, as moderate people with sense, have to colonize some of these things a little bit. You know, we have to get creators like me and bigger names if possible to start setting up a presence on them that aren't just political channels, especially like of one slant only. So I think that's important. So I'm probably going to do it starting next week. I have to look and see what I have to do. I don't think you have to pay for it anymore unless it's streaming costs. I'll have to look and see, but I'll probably start using it next week. Probably like 80% probable. So. Ajna says, this is a good comment. It's important. Now, of course, it's different no matter, it's different where in the world you are, but Ajna is saying where Ajna is, It's not that we're told American borders are open. I mean, they are. But every American movie from 1960 up to 2020 pretty much told us the U.S. is the greatest country in the world. And yeah, that if you're sitting there and you're pooping in a hole, and meat is like a once a week deal, and you know, you're struggling to make ends meet, and you hear, come to America, the streets are paved with gold. Remember, that's what's always been the draw. Okay, it's not new, Ajna. It's actually been like, you know, the 1800s they were saying this stuff. I mean, this is why my grandparents came over. You know, they, or should say my great-grandparents came over. They had to go through Ellis Island and all that stuff, and, you know, get their names and get documented and all that. And they came here, and it was an easy process, which is what it probably should be. You know, it should be comparable. We update it so we've got background checks and shit. But besides that, unless there is hey, our economy can't handle any more people, then fuck it, let them in. Like, I don't have a problem with that. It's just, I want them to be legalized. I want them to pay taxes and have background checks and give probation. So you don't have a job in 6 months, you commit even a parking violation, you know, you could potentially be kicked out. That's all I would do. Just make it so that, like, yeah, you get a probationary period and all that. It's not hard. It doesn't have to be, I'm sure we'd have to do more than that, but that's kind of what I'm saying. So, yeah, that is still, you know, I guess it still holds true. I mean, where else are you going to go? I don't know if we're the freest country anymore or not, but we were, you know, for a little while. So, yeah. Eddie says exploitation of labor is what creates illegal immigration. It's a factor. I'm not going to say, you make it sound like that's all it is. No, it's absolutely a factor, though. There's no question. Considering the industry that I work in outside of here, which is landscaping and nursery work. Yeah, you know, for years, these landscapers happily and greedily preferentially hired illegals, paying them cash under the table. So they don't have to pay taxes. They don't have to report it. They can keep more of their income, every reason under the sun, you know? And most of them are like hard right MAGA people, by the way. You know, most blue collar people tend to be that way. So they're hypocrites, and they piss me to fuck off. So they're hiring all these people and they want them in. Well, now it's backfired on them because so many have come in and they've started their own landscaping businesses, and because a lot of them, you know, have better ties to people, they're undercutting the other landscapers now, and the white or American landscapers are being pushed out. And it's like, well, good, you fucking deserve it. You know, you were, like Eddie says, you were exploiting cheap migrant labor for pennies on the dollar, or, you know, 20% less than you have to pay me. And of course they work harder than I would. Of course, I've never been a good worker, but they work a lot harder than I would. So, you know, it's game theory, you know, and unfortunately they took a short-term gain, and they end up, half of them are retiring anyway now, so I guess it worked out for them. But they exploited these people, and I shouldn't say that. A lot of them treat their workers very well. They pay them less than they'd pay me, yes, but they wouldn't hire me, right? Because they'd have to make paperwork for me. The only reason they'd hire a guy like me, so they hire legals or white dudes, I guess you would jokingly say, you know, American citizens or legals, to be the drivers, because those guys get stopped. And those guys have to have papers, they have to have a license, they have to have everything. Whereas someone who's maybe not legal probably doesn't have that unless they get it from a state that gives them one. So they get looked at more, the drivers. So the drivers tend to be legal, but the crew tends to be illegal. So they might hire me as a crew guy, as a driver, or an assistant or something. But that's my point. They're not going to give, you know, the same treatment to everybody, and they ended up screwing themselves. And, you know, in some ways it's good. Fuck them. Yeah, Cat brings up the living wage. I mean, I'm not for minimum wage. I don't think it's necessary if our government wasn't trying to actively fuck us. Since it's actively trying to fuck us, you know, like, what else do you have? But, you know, I'm not a minimum wage guy, but my solution to half these problems, slash the government, to tatters. Like, how much of a government do we really need, considering what we're seeing going on? Do we really need this giant fucking enormous government that costs us trillions upon trillions of dollars, that benefits us not at all, that has a corrupt FBI, CIA, ATFE, all these bureaus, every lettered agency should either be completely defunded and scrapped, or cut to a fraction of its size, and other ways found to do it that are less corruptible. We could save billions out of that. There's so many ways we could stop the drain. And if we did that, well, you wouldn't have to borrow so much from the Federal Reserve. See, people think I bet you most of you guys watching, and give me a thumbs up in the chat if you knew this. Give me a thumbs down if you didn't. I bet you a lot of people in this chat believe that taxes pay for things. I bet you most of you guys think that when you pay your taxes, it goes into a coffer and then they decide what to do with that money the next year or something. That is absolutely not how this works. Our system is based on fiat currency run by a central bank that loans the money to our government. They are not, the Federal Reserve is not, it's called Federal Reserve, but it has nothing to do with the federal government. It's a private entity. Meanwhile, our government has the ability to print its own money without a bank. They fucked themselves in the 50s, 60s, whatever. We were supposed to go back on the gold standard. We didn't. We were supposed to get off the fiat system. We didn't. We doubled down on it, tripled down on it, became the petrodollar. And so we created a huge time bomb that's gonna go off probably in the next couple of years, probably before 24. I wouldn't doubt. Very high probability. So make sure you got some stuff that's not gonna necessarily go away if there's major inflation or something, which there is already, but potentially major inflation. So when you pay your taxes, it does not go into a fund that then funds the government. It's used to pay off the interest that the loan that we take out of we owe the Federal Reserve so much money, and we only pay so much of it. This is what that deficit is that you used to, especially in the 90s, used to make a big deal. If everybody in the country paid $1 million, we'd still have a deficit, like that was like the old slogan or something. So we have national debt to foreign offshore banks that are not technically American anything, that basically own our country. If you think about it, if we default on that debt, which we may do soon, because there's that debt crisis going on, that default fucks our credits, our national credit rating, which means we can't do other things. It's a big hit to everything. And of course they're playing games with it because that's a political fucking bullshit nightmare. And you know what? We're probably at the point where just fuck it, default, because the system's broke and we're not going to fix it this way. It's got to collapse into its own footprint before people realize it's got to change. Once upon a time, yes, taxation was literally the piggy bank, but that's gone. That's not done that way anymore. And there's arguments for and against the central banking system, but from a freedom perspective, from a system that is not easily corruptible, you're better off with tangible money that's based on something that isn't made up funny money and isn't borrowed from a foreign institution and all this other shit. We've never audited the Federal Reserve. We have no idea what they do with the money we give them. We tried, I think it was 2011 or 2010, Bernie Sanders and Ron Paul both started an end or audit the Fed. I forget what they called it, but they had, they had a nice slogan for it. And they were taking on the Fed. And they were right. They had them on the ropes, and then something happened. Bernie went behind closed doors with them and came back out and bent over. And Ron Paul was like, what? So That's why I'll never trust Bernie. There might have been a time I would have, because a lot of left libertarians think he's a good guy. There's a time I would have at least given him some benefit of the doubt. After that, I've seen him do this time and time again. Every time he gets any kind of, he gets right up to the point of having an influence, and then he either gets cheated, or more likely he just does that so that they have to pay him off, and then he backs down. I've seen him do it a lot of times, and I don't trust him as far as I could throw him. So, you know, say what you will, but that's what I think of him. Yeah. All right. Ajna says there's no advantage for immigrants, believe me. I mean, it's yeah, if you're a legal immigrant, you know, I definitely agree. If you're illegal, it's difficult to say because there is a trade-off, you know. If you're illegal, depending upon where you are, there's definitely risks that are dangerous. Like you can't necessarily own things. You can't, you know, there's certain prohibitions. At least there used to be. Those are getting swept away. But at the same time, there are advantages, especially if you're a little shady. Again, I don't want to name names or anything, obviously, but I know of people who don't just double or triple dip. They like quadruple dip the system with multiple security cards, getting benefits upon benefits upon benefits, and they work and this and that. They own multiple cars, homes, the whole works. They might have to use other people's names for some of it in some cases because of legality, but they are absolutely gaming the system, and they're not the only one. You know, and I'm not saying they all do it at all, but it is, and there's plenty of citizens that do shit like that too, to be fair. But most citizens don't have the wherewithal. They don't know how to do it because they don't have connections to coyotes and all this other shit that help to set them up in the first place. So it's a mess, right? And the problem is, if you complain about it, one half the population thinks you're a racist, and if you don't complain about it, the other half thinks you're a weird leftist idiot. So it's like, again, the nuance is lost. There's a lot of nuance here. You can disagree with my nuance, but don't you dare call me a racist or a bigot over it. Don't call me a this or a that. That's bullshit. Argue the nuance. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think so, but maybe I'm wrong about some of the nuances. That's possible. So yeah. Man, 10K for a green card, Jen? That sounds about right. I think the last I heard, the Coyotes was around 10 grand too, but I think it's up now. I don't know. I could ask my friends. Last I heard, like 5 years ago when I asked them about it, was like 10 grand a pop. And that doesn't mean you're not going to get your fucking shit pushed in, you know, or get raped along the way. It just means you're going to get here. So, Blade of Astra says, I don't know if white people bad has much consequence for white people as brown people bad has for brown people. One is more terminally online, and the other usually ends in people getting shot en masse. And there, I think there's a degree of truth to that. I would say though that who's really saying brown people bad in a way that has any impact, really? Most people don't think that way. They might start to now as things devolve, but coming up to this point, up until like the last 3 or 4 years, and it's not Trump's fault. People want to blame it on him, or blame it on MAG or something. It's been building, and I think a lot of this, if you see a lot of this brown people bad thing, it's a pushback from people on the right who sometimes aren't all white, by the way, who are pissed off at this propaganda that has been leveled against cis white culture. There's pushback now, and that pushback, you know, people have been sort of taking it on the chin for years, and I see so much demoralization and self-deprecation that it's like, you guys are ridiculous. Like, I don't feel guilty for what people did 500 years ago, 200, even 50 years ago. Okay. The way I see it is, if you are less fortunate, then my drive is to not treat you like shit. Doesn't matter what your history was or your ancestors were. It's not about white, black, or anything in between. It's, this person's not doing as well as me. Well, why? Not that I'm doing that great, but why? Why are they not doing well? You know, what's the reason? Is it something that is unfair? Is it something that's self-inflicted? Is it something cultural? Like, what's the deal here? The whole white people are screwing brown people argument doesn't hold much water, in my opinion. Now, it depends on where you're from. If you're in redneck, you know, fucko land, maybe it does. You know, I don't know what it's like. I have a friend actually who lived in Tennessee for a while. I guess they were living there for years. And the poor girl was getting letters in her mailbox from the KKK. Now, I don't remember if she was born here or not. She's Spanish, and she recently moved to New York. And if you're watching, what's up? She was getting mail from the KKK. And I'm like, damn. So I guess in some places it's still happening. So, because I live in New York, and where I live, you know, on Long Island, it's a deep red county by the voting map, but legit racism is like almost unheard of. You know, it's not that it doesn't happen. It's just, it's not organized. It's not really an issue, right? Most people don't think that way here. So, which is a good thing. It's one of the reasons I like living here, right? I often wonder, like, where do I want to move when I move away from here? I don't want to lose the open-minded nature of this area and go move into either a deep blue or deep red area where everyone's either a bigot or, you know, got woke issues, right? I just want people who are sane around me, who aren't bigots and racists or woke or whatever. I just want sane, and I don't know, because I don't see enough of the world. I don't know what it's like elsewhere. But I don't want to go so like where my dad is upstate. There's plenty of racists up there. They exist. They're out there. So I guess it's one of those things where I don't know enough outside of my bubble to be able to say with certainty that there isn't racism going on and that there isn't these things. But what I do know is that the media, corporations, the government have been pounding this drum of white people bad for decades now, to the point where it's never meant to have a positive effect. You don't fix these problems with negativity. You don't stop racists from being racist by calling them racist. You know what I mean? Because all that does is make the racists go underground. And there's a lot of people on the left that are fucking ridiculously racist, and they don't know it because they've swallowed, and I shouldn't say left. Let me clear the slate, guys. That's a habit that's going to die hard, okay? Especially for you guys on the left. I apologize. I beg your forgiveness. I'm going to probably do it again. It's just an old habit. People in this woke progressive thing, I've known a lot of them, and they're deeply racist at the core. But they hide it with these ideas. Okay? And I know this because they're the type of people who they look down on people of color. They don't look at them and say, they're equal to me and therefore they deserve rights, freedom, etc. They go, these poor, unfortunate people, they don't know how to read and write. They literally look at them like the white people that they are. So in that sense, I guess racism is alive and well. It's just a racism of low expectation, a racism of looking down at people while at the same time thinking you support them. It's like when moneyed gentry, not that long ago, would look at minorities and be like, well, we must donate to the poor so that they can perhaps someday become, but they should live over there. Don't move into my neighborhood. So they're NIMBYists is one way to describe them. Styx says this all. They're NIMBYists. Most people in that spectrum, like most of my former real life friends, are NIMBYists. They wouldn't be caught dead with the people that I grew up with as my friends. They wouldn't be caught dead with them. They might have one token person of color in their fucking party. Maybe two if it's a big enough party. I'm dead serious. When I grew up, I was the token white guy. So I remember, like, I had this one friend, fucking asswipe. I fell asleep on the train and I ended up missing my station by like a couple of stops. I ended up in Wyandanch. And if you know anything about Long Island, you know Wyandanch is usually a place where if it's after midnight and you're white and you get off the train, people would say you're probably got to be careful. Well, I don't have this problem because again, to me, that's like not that big a deal. And I'm there and I end up like having conversations with random strangers. Yes, all minorities that didn't factor in. I hand out cigarettes. I know that's like a way, to make friends with people. I grew up in the fucking streets. I know. So I'm hanging out with these people. We're laughing it up. We're having a good time. I'm like shaking hands with people and we're talking about like, and I'm making friends. And my asshole friend, because I called him to pick me up because I fucked up. So maybe I shouldn't call him an asshole because he did come out to Wyandanch at like 1 a.m. to pick me up. So he picks me up. And when I get in the car, this motherfucker who considers himself all progressive and white people are bad, black people are better and blah, blah, says to me, I can't even say the word he said. He says, Dan, you're the only white person I know that can end up in the middle of Wyandanch in the middle of the night, hanging out with all the bloop bloop and not have any, and he said a slur and not have any issue, something like that. And I just looked at him like, ew, I mean, I mean, and this is a person that's lecturing others on, race, morality and shit today. Jokes aside, he wasn't kidding. This wasn't like a ha-ha satire. This was, you don't use that word that way unless you really think of it that way in that context. Okay, yes, I could see finding it funny that a white guy could be in this neighborhood and not be in trouble. That has an element of humor. It does. But to be these... I mean, this is why I don't have a lot of patience for this, because it's not that it's always like this. It's just I know way too many people that are that way. And it's so gross to me. It really is fucking gross. Because to me, it's like, this is a problem that only goes away if we start treating people as people. Yes, respect people's origins, their ethnicities, their these are parts of what make them who they are, but it's not their whole fucking personality. It's not what they are. It just shapes their perspective. And maybe I can't relate to all of that. I get that. I can only relate so much as a dude who's obviously white as hell. I can't relate to, as they call it, the black experience or the Spanish experience. I can't relate to it that much. Although the Spanish one I can a little bit, because when I went to get my pistol license, and this wasn't the first time this happened, I went to get my pistol license a few years back, and the detective, she saw my records like, wow, this guy's clean as hell. He shouldn't even be here. She thought I was Spanish as the day is long. Probably because I had a full tan because I was working outside at the time. And I guess the way I look, the way I present myself, my facial hair, blah, blah, blah. For whatever reason, when I told her my name, she's like, no way. I thought you were, I could swear you were Spanish. Like, really? You're not at all? You're not Hispanic in the slightest? I'm like, no, that's like, I think the only thing I don't have, actually. I probably have some black in me somewhere, or at least some black relatives. Maybe not black in me, but probably some black relatives. And don't worry, it wasn't from the, the massa. So, it's like, I guess it doesn't compute for me, like the guilt that other people have, probably because I grew up in an environment where that didn't have time to be an issue. I didn't have any problem integrating with people of color or other genders or anything ever in my life. So it doesn't compute to me certain things. And maybe that's a bubble I'm in, to be fair. I want to admit that that could be a bubble I'm in. And so I don't see the racism because I'm in a bubble that it doesn't fly with me. I don't allow it into my life. Again, satire aside, satire is fair game up to a point, sure. I think among friends, satire is always fair game. I was given the N-word pass so many times that I never used it. I never wanted it. I didn't care. To me, it's just a word, and it's like I wouldn't apply it, not even as a joke. But to me, it's sad. It's sad. It's so fucking sad because, maybe my family raised me right. I don't look at people in that way, and I'm doing a lot of virtue signaling right now. I think to me, what I'm doing is I'm trying to point out that it doesn't compute to me, and so therefore I look at everybody else like you're fucking crazy. So it's not really a virtue signal because I'm literally looking at most people going, you guys are sick. Like what is your problem? It doesn't make sense to me. It never did. I remember when 9/11 happened and there was suddenly all this animosity towards everybody from the Middle East who might be Muslim. I'm like, whoa, wait a fucking minute. Most of these people are not like that. That's a few extremists, just like we have extremists of anything. Why are we so guys, you have to remember the average person is a fucking dolt that thinks with their limited binary childish attitude about things. They don't look at nuance. They don't try to have nuance. They literally just try to beat other views down because it's tribal for them. And on the occasion that I get swept up into that tribalism, it makes me sick. And I feel really sick when that happens. I've alienated people that didn't deserve it. I've attacked people that didn't deserve it. And I've been attacked without deserving it. So anyway, I want to change the subject because I think I'm done with it. But you get my point. Man, I should start reading these chats more. You guys are just chatting it up. I am way behind. By the way, did you guys hear about the 30,000 tons of ammonium nitrate that just got stolen off a railway this week? Why would someone steal 30 tons of ammonium nitrate in this current climate? You guys know what that's used for, right? Tim McVeigh used about a ton of it. I'll just leave it at that. So why would they steal all that? I have a feeling they're gonna use that to make some boom booms and blame people that are politically, you know, on the hook lately. So if it happens, you heard it here first. If there's a sudden rash of, you know, explosions, you heard it here first. Don't trust what they say. Ajna makes a good point about, you know, Tesla and him are going back and forth, and I think they're both making good points. I just do me a favor, you guys, if you guys are still, because I'm way back in the conversation, just treat each other with some respect. I think you are. Just please give each other respect for their opinions, and try to see each other's perspective and trust that everyone's being sincere. That doesn't mean everybody's right. It just means you're being sincere about it, and you're not bad for your perspective, okay? So share your perspective. Just don't attack each other. I'm not saying you are. I just see you guys getting very like back and forth, and I want to make sure you guys stay copacetic, because I think it's important that we have these conversations in a way that isn't insane. And I think we can still do that, especially since things are, I think the tide's turning, if it hasn't turned already. And I think it may not look like it to many of you, but I think we're still going to have a lot of bad shit happen. I'm probably going to be like, oh, fuck, what happened next? But I see a light at the end of the tunnel. Hopefully it's not a train. But I think you're both making important and good points, because I think you're both right in a way. I think that, you know, so Ajna said Tesla for sure, man. So it's a shitty economy based on crony capitalism. Let's put that in all capitals, which is actually not really capitalism. Thank you, Ajna. Thank you. That I've been screaming that for years. Is this like, people are like, oh, we're in late stage capitalism. Dude, we haven't had real capitalism in this country. We had corporatism for the longest time, and we call it capitalism because it's vaguely capital adjacent. That's like calling socialism communism, right? They're not the same thing. They have some elements in common, but they're not the same thing. You know, so no, we do not have capitalism here. If we did, in some ways things might be bad, because one of the things that could happen, if you recall back in the 1900s, early 1900s, late 1800s, you know, they had signs in the window and Irish need not apply and shit. So what do you do about some discrimination things if you have total free market capitalism? You'd still need some level of regulation, I'm sorry to say. That's why I'm a minarchist. I'm not an absolute, you know, I'm not an ANCAP. I'm a min cap, you know, I'm a minarchist libertarian. I don't believe in zero regulation. I just don't think that regulation can be, it has to be done in a way that doesn't make winners and losers. It's got to be about, the only regulation I want is regulations that protect human rights, human freedom, you know, no sweatshops. But by the same token, if people want to work at a young age or something, there might be a way to do this, you know, there might be, I just don't want sweatshops and shit. So it's probably better not to have young kids working, but you get my point, you know. think we lost Joke Biden. He must have went off to sniff some people. Oh, Ajna, that comment. Oh, I'm going to pin that comment. I'm pinning this comment. That doesn't happen much. I just pinned a comment by Ajna. He says, I'm a mushroom Aryan tonight. Fuck reality, fuck culture. Remember where you actually come from before you were told you're a human. That right there. That's my spirit animal. I love that. I love that, brother. Thank you. I just pinned that comment. That was fantastic. I felt that deep down, because if everybody was on that level, we'd be fine. We wouldn't be here. If everybody, this is why I love people that are trying, like Donald Hoffman, who are trying to get the scientific community on board with recognizing non-duality as a valid metaphysical and scientifically valid perspective. And if everybody recognized the non-dual essence behind everything, if everybody recognized consciousness was the essence of the underlying reality, if we all recognize it's the same consciousness underlying everything, holy shit, we'd probably stop fucking each other for the most part. Well, I mean, we still have fun fucking. I mean, we wouldn't be fucking each other over as bad. My wife's giggling. I think she hears me staggering. Cat Jones asks, with a smaller government, theoretically, how would you prevent it, mostly deter it becoming corrupt? Don't get me wrong, I understand, but I do. So the corruption isn't necessarily just from the size of the government. Big government is just, the problem with big government is you get lobbying interests, you get all this kind of shit. It becomes filled with largesse and all this other bullshit, which feeds corruption. A smaller government means less taxation. It means less authority over things. You end up with an administration, not rulers. Now, this is why the founding fathers, they never intended for a big, strong central federal government. They actually, there was the Federalists and there was the Anti-Federalists, and the Federalists lost the argument early on. And so they built a country that was not meant to have this huge, big, overarching federal government that lords itself over everything. The federal government was just there to smooth over relations between the states and to uphold the central constitution that everybody signed on to. That's why every state has their own constitution that is meant to. So the federal constitution protects, like the first 10 amendments in particular, protects human rights. And so the states they ratify that, and they all have their own state constitution, which can put little, inflections on it. But ultimately, the federal government can tell the states, like if they're breaking the federal constitution. So for example, if a state enacts strict gun control, then people can sue that state and it goes up to the top, and then eventually it goes to the federal courts and then to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court says, this conflicts with the Second Amendment, so your state bullshit is wrong. And that's how it was meant to go. But what ended up happening is we ended up with we were supposed to have a decentralized government. If we went back to the way the United States was when it was founded, it was very close to what ANCOMs would like, because it's a big decentralized system and people could set up communes if they wanted to. It wouldn't have been like, oh, you commie bastard. People would have been, you know how many communes and shit existed? Religious communes? How did the Amish get started? This wasn't a weird thing 200 years ago. It only became weird in the last 100 years. And specifically after the Civil War, when they centralized the government under the federal government. So what we're saying, we say a smaller government, we're also really saying a decentralized one. The only centralization we want is a system that is constitutional. In other words, we want a constitutional republic at the top that says you can't fuck with people's rights and all this other good shit. But the states are free to augment these things so that their populations are served by their unique needs. Because every state, every community, every town has its own unique needs. And one size doesn't fit all. So you need to have these levels of government. So when we say a smaller government, we're not saying that we have less states or something like that. What we're saying is a government that's not bloated with all of these agencies and institutions that literally are there just to put the boot on people's necks and say comply with all this bullshit. The FBI, the CIA, the ATFE, just as easy examples, the IRS, holy shit. You know, we could get rid of all of them and this country would still function. You know, and you can't even make the argument we wouldn't have a military. You could still do all the same things. The military is a huge part of the budget, yes. But it's the MIC that's the problem, because they create wars so that they have a reason to resupply our government with weapons and munitions. In this modern era, governments don't need to resort to conventional war very often unless it's a policing action against a small little cartel or something. We're not likely to ever, I may eat my words, but we're not likely to ever have a conventional war with a major nation unless it is staged, scripted on some level. In other words, the chances of us, say, being invaded by a foreign country are right about zero. When I say invaded, I don't mean like the border of it. I mean like literal, you know, storming the beaches of Normandy, tanks rolling around. That's a near zero. Like, I don't want to say it's a zero, but it's, come on, it's like 0.1%. It's so unlikely because nukes exist, information warfare exists. Right now, look this up. It's called fifth generational warfare. We've been using this for a while, and that's what's being used on the American people right now. If you want to know why everything's so crazy and surreal, it's because we're being bombarded with fifth generational warfare by our own fucking government and outside forces, the same way that happened like in the Middle East in the early 2000s and Libya. And all, it's the same story. They go in, they destabilize a country, giving them an excuse to go in with conventional, which they don't really have to do because they could do it other ways. And that's what it is. So the MIC, the military industrial complex, stages most of these conflicts on some level or causes them so that we end up having to have these wars. And then they make a fortune. Yeah, Eddie has a good point. My first rule of politics, nobody who wants to have power over another human being should be in any way allowed to have it. Wanting to be an administrator isn't the same thing. But not many systems are administrative. Most of them are rulers, and that's the problem. America used to be about administration, not rule, but it's become about rule again. We don't have administrators, we have rulers now. And if that's not obvious to you, you need to take your face out of the fucking crack pipe. Just saying. And this goes along with what Christian just said. He says, bureaucracy and bureaucrats unfortunately seem necessary. That's, I think you mean administrators. So on some level, yes, you're probably right. But a ruling body has very few good points to just, exactly, there's no reason. Rulers are the problem. We don't need rulers. We need administrators. We need administrators and we need a justice system. And, you know, we need other things, but that's, you know, you don't need much more. Ninurta, what's up, Ninurta? I didn't see you come in. What's up, brother? I don't know if Moonin's being a troll or joking or serious. He says, look at what the Biden administration did for your federal student loans and your credit score. ingrates. I'm not sure who he's talking at, but I don't know if I want to touch that one because that's a little too politicizable. I'm more about the philosophy of things right now. Cat asks, okay, off the political trend, but did anyone feel like this past Mercury in retrograde was particularly harsh? I actually got caught in it this time. I often mock it. Jen will vouch for this. I often mock the Mercury retrograde because generally it's not a bad thing. It's really a time when you're supposed to be more introspective and thinking about how your words affect others. It's supposed to be an introspective thing. It's not supposed to be, it doesn't work, like you can't talk or something. So I usually mock it. But this time, right at the beginning of it, I got triggered by some stupid email I got because I didn't understand what it was doing. I was having a bad day, okay? So I got this email talking about, from Etsy, saying if you don't want Mother's Day emails because Mother's Day is so troubling. In my brain, I heard woke, 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 woke. I didn't realize that it was legitimately, there are people, it's not because mothers suck or something. It was literally because, like, maybe you lost your mom last week. So when I read that, I got triggered by it. I was having a bad day. Again, I wasn't in my right mind, but that's no excuse. So I saw this and I flipped out and I made a post about it on Facebook and I got schooled by everybody. People who think I'm arrogant and can't take criticism have no idea who they're dealing with because I literally said, nope, I'm owning it. I'm leaving that up. And I put an edit, 2 of them, saying I'm leaving this here unchanged so you can see how stupid I was. Because I really, and Jen was like, I forget how she said it, but we joked about, oh, Mercury in retrograde finally happened to me. Oh my God, dude, if you can't laugh at yourself, who can you laugh at? So I fucked that fucker up real bad. So that was my, usually Mercury retrograde is like a brilliant thing for me. Usually I do great because I'm such a decent communicator. I don't usually have any problem with it. But I guess this time I screwed my own pooch. Made Liberty's here. What's up, Made Liberty? She says, hello, chat. Alpha's here. What's up, Alpha? She says, hello, everybody. Hello, DH. Christian brings up, soon the colonization of Mars and other planets underground will create opportunities for many people. Raising hell in the US is just for that. I think that a lot of what's going on, especially with like the depopulation agenda and all that, has to do with AI coming online and taking over industries. And there's going to be a lot of people that are starving and homeless because of it. So they're trying to depopulate before that happens. So there's less people to worry about that will be without a job. But they're doing it in a way that it's not fucking FEMA camps, and it's probably not going to be bioweapons that wipe us all out in one shot. They've got us with the fertility. I've said this time and time again. I'm not sure what this was in reference to, but Christian tagged me and said, Fleshy and I talked about this. If we can still do magic and shit, I'll upload myself to the server. If I can't do magic in the server, then hell no. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a little skeptical of the singularity simply because I don't trust the people setting it up. So I don't know if we can do that without killing ourselves. I really don't. We'll see. We'll see how it happens. there's probably ways to do it that wouldn't be so bad. Tesla says, I agree this remaining totalitarian policy is useless, but at the same time, letting this disgrace multiply to make desperate people colonize other planets is absurd. Yeah. You know, I don't have any hope for the future, really, until we reach a point where literally anybody can buy a spaceship, you know, with their wages. You know what I'm saying? Like when a spaceship is like a Model T Ford and anybody can buy one. And you can go fly through space, then I got hope, because there's a whole universe out there. There's no reason to do this to each other. You know, there's an endless frontier out there that people could live and be alone, and you could go set up a moon with any system of government and life you want. You know, there's no reason for if we all just fucking pitched in and set that up, we'd probably be fine. But see. Don't come to Canada. Wasn't planning on it. Canada's completely fucked. Sorry, Maiden. Find a way down here when the fucking shit hits the fan. I don't know where it's going to be better, though, to be brutally honest with you. It's not to say all of Canada's fucked, but it's pretty fucked. I think Canada is going to end up pushing it away, you know, getting itself back together, but I don't know how it's going to happen. I just get that vibe. It's just a matter of time. But I think America has to sort its shit out, and then other places will start to sort their shit out. You know, like, not to be all, you know, American exceptionalism on your asses, but it is a known fact that the fact that America still has its constitution, its freedom, its guns, the New World Order is holding back on full on authoritarianism around the world because Americans won't stand for it if that shit starts to happen. Like once it's confirmed, like, oh, we see people being rounded up because they voted a certain way in Western nations or something, which is, we're almost there, by the way, then I think you're going to see a lot of Americans wake up and be like, wait a minute, what the fuck's happening over there? And why are those same people operating here? And so they're holding off until they get us locked down. They're not going to get us locked down. That's a given now. As bad as it is, there's no way this fucking toothpaste is going back in the tube now. Too many people know, too many people are pissed off, too many people won't take it anymore. Left, right, center are all starting to look at the government and the corporations and go, what the fuck are you all doing? If only we can come together and organize together instead of attack each other in the process. We haven't reached that stage yet. I'm hoping that happens soon. I don't know when it will. I have hope because you still got people like Jen and me talking, and like we didn't stop talking, but we're really talking now, and we're seeing eye to eye, and we're going, yeah, wait a minute, fuck these people, you know. So the more that starts to happen, I have hope, but we got to get through worse. More shit has to break before people realize maybe, you know, some of these issues aren't worth fighting about right now. We got a bigger fish to fry. When that happens, all bets are off. It's over. We're going to kick them all out. Hopefully that happens soon. But, yeah. Man, this has been a totally political stream tonight, huh? For those of you who don't like it, I apologize. For those who do, you're welcome. You see, like, all right. Eddie says something about Musk. He says, Musk is an idiot. I have yet to hear him say anything even remotely competent. Now, no offense, Eddie, because on some level, I don't trust him either. Obviously, he just hired a WF stooge to be his CEO, which he says won't influence the decisions of the company beyond business. I don't buy that for a minute, because he suddenly is also hanging out with the Krasensteins and he ended up hanging out with Chuck Schumer, saying he really loved America. That's like saying fucking, I don't want to say it because it's going to get me in trouble with the algorithm. That's a crock, you know, it's a crock. So I've got my complaints about Musk, but I think that there is a thing you can tell people's political, where they're getting their opinions from by how they react to certain people and certain, it's kind of like the mask thing. Like you could tell someone where they are politically if there's a high probability if someone's wearing a mask at this point that they probably voted for Biden and they'd probably do it again. All right. So no offense, Eddie, because you'd probably say the same thing in return to me. You'd probably say Thorne only gives Musk a pass because he somehow recently was nice to the right wing. And I would give you credit for that because you're probably right. It gave me a reason to look at him and go, well, at least he freed the bird and opened up, the Twitter files, and I got to give him credit for that. So I do. But does that mean he's some kind of a fucking hero or anything? No. But you can't deny that the man's profitable and he's got visions and all this other shit. But there's a really high probability that he is one of them because he's got the brain chips. He's got everything that they love. Okay. So I've always had one of these opinions where when it comes to Musk, I treat him like a wild card. And when his actions benefit me, I support him. And when he doesn't, I call him out because he's very much on the fence with me. And so I want to see him do more right things. And I do think that he is trying to somehow navigate this conflict in a way where he doesn't alienate both sides. I think that's what he's doing, but it may just be that he's controlled opposition or something. So I am ambivalent. Is that the right word? Ambivalent? No. Apprehensive. Yeah, I'm a little apprehensive, but I haven't made my mind up on him. And indifference a little strong, honey, but it's closer. Yeah. I'm a little indifferent in the sense that I have a wait and see attitude about him, but he's just a billionaire. Like, why are we worshiping these people? Either way, right? In the end, that's all it is, So I'm not defending him. I'm just saying, like, I think people, they love and hate people like that largely because of what they're told. And I don't look at it too much like that. When I see the media attack somebody, I want to know what they're about because I know the media is corrupt. When I see MAGA attack somebody, I actually want to check them out too because I want to know why. Is it really a problem, or is this just something they're trying to destroy? And so it pays when you're hearing, when you almost have to go back to Socrates and his three his three sieves. Is this something that affects me? Is this something that's true? Like, have you confirmed it? And is this something negative about the person? So if all three of those don't, if there's not one good reason for me to know about it, I don't want to know about it. So, in other words, gossip sucks. But this is what I mean by purity spirals. People either love or hate Musk because they're engaged in purity spiraling. This is why I don't resort to just being like Musk sucks or Musk's a saint, because there's nuance here, guys. We don't know. I don't know what his deal is. He may be legit independent, or maybe he's a WF agent, or maybe he's a good guy, or maybe he's not a good guy. He's done both. He's got me guessing, which in a way is interesting to me. I'm not used to people like being able to be like, I don't know what to think about the person. He's got me guessing. So when someone like when Biden does something I agree with, I'll be like, hey, good thing. I'm glad you did that. Even though I fucking hate your guts. Thank you. I don't know. I try not to. Sometimes I do, but I try not to be so simplistic, Elon bad, Elon good. That never pays off. It never pays off in life. He says Twitter is more of a cesspool than even Reddit. And it always has been. Twitter is like, that is where assholes go to fight each other. And you know, if you ever follow my troll accounts on Twitter, you know that I let my shadows out on full display on my troll accounts. Even on my main account, I can be quite, snarky. But Twitter is not a place you go for intelligent conversation. Twitter is the only reason to use Twitter is that you get really quick news if you follow the right people. That's the only reason to use Twitter. It's literally just a fight club for ideologies. And honestly, if I had better discipline when it comes to internet use, I wouldn't even be on the fucking thing. Twitter's disgusting. Facebook sucks, but at least Facebook allows me to post some long form content. YouTube sucks, but I can post long form videos. Twitter is, I'm glad it's there for the assholes to fight, but I don't enjoy using it. In fact, I get like tight in my neck when I use it because it's just, I can recognize a bot a mile away because they use lame arguments and they're just troll accounts and shit. Half the people you interact with on Twitter are trolls, bots, or shills. So there's not a lot of organic use there. And when there is, it's mostly just tribal hatred. And in a way, it's a good thing because people are fighting on there and not in the streets. But at the same time, it's still divisive and sucks. So that's one of the reasons why I like Discord and all these others, because, we can, we can have a better conversation there. It's not Twitter, it's Twatter, says Maiden of Liberty. Yeah, Twatter is a good way to put it. And he says KKK and Nazis are a real problem out here in Pennsylvania. I mean, why do you think I've been like hesitant to move out into the boonies where I feel like I'd be more comfortable just in general? Although to be honest, like it's almost like I have two souls. One side wants to be deep in the country and never set foot in a city again. And the other one loves city life and would love to just have a beautiful apartment in a city and be that cool city occultist, What, honey? I don't know. The other day you were saying you'd choose the bigger town over the bumblefuck anyway. So my wife gave us a comment. Yeah, I mean, I could be happy either way. I remember my problem is being around a lot of people all the time is draining. It sucks, especially as the kind of, psychic empath I am. It really does bother me, but yeah, Moonin says, I don't want neo-Nazis around me either or Black Panthers. Exactly. I just want normal people that don't hate each other. Like, I know they're out there. I'm surrounded by them and like I surround myself with you. I know you're out there, but where is this place in the world where people are mostly sane? I don't know. But I do enjoy both extremes. What I don't like is the people that tend to be in either extreme by and large. Christian says, I like referring to myself as woke just to piss off the wrong people. Yeah, but that doesn't really help though. Like we're reaching a point, Christian, and I hope you're realizing it, that we've got to stop with the trying to change people by attacking them thing. It's not to say you can't do it when people really have it coming. Some people do. But by and large, we have to stop this aggressive activism with each other. We have to start talking again. And we have to start talking from a place of sharing, not a place of destroying each other. So I don't think that really helps, you know, in my opinion. I think it's counterproductive. I think that we're reaching a point, especially in the coming couple of years, where y'all are going to be scared out of your minds. I'm predicting that within probably like 80% probability, y'all are going to be scared out of your fucking minds with what's going to happen the next year or two. Things are going to happen, especially in America, you haven't seen in like 200 years. This is going to be some scary shit. And I hope it's not as bad as I'm thinking it's going to be. But people have to stop while we can. Anybody with sense, if you're listening to me and you trust my judgment, even if I'm wrong about the chaos, let's say there's no chaos, the prescription's still the same. It's time to stop. You know, I fed into it. A lot of people fed into it. I was wrong to feed into it. That doesn't mean I don't have a very strong conviction in what I think. And it doesn't mean that there aren't people that I would destroy if I had the chance. But that doesn't mean that everybody is my enemy, even if we don't agree. We've got to start finding what is important to us. And if we agree on that, then figure out how to work through those other things. And if there's an existential difference, this is the thing people have to get through their heads. Not everything's an existential difference. Some things are. So what's an existential difference? An existential difference is, for example, if you were somebody who wanted to return to slavery, well, I couldn't be your friend. I'd attack you. I'd boot you out of my life because that's an existential problem. It's going to hurt people I care about. So no, fuck you. If you are into gun control, that's an existential difference because even a little gun control, I refuse to comply with. So your idea of helping people by limiting magazine capacity or some bullshit is ultimately only going to hurt me because I'm going to resist that. I'll probably get dragged out in the street and shot if I resist it the way I want to, or I'll run away. Either way, it's going to fuck my life up. So no, fuck you. So there's existential differences, and we've got to figure out which things are legitimate existential differences and which things are more along the lines of, like football issues. When I say football issues, they're really not existential. They're just things that matter to a few people. And it doesn't mean you dismiss them. It's just, they're not existential. So for example, you don't like Dylan Mulvaney on Bud Light cans. Well, that's not an existential difference. If one person likes it and one person doesn't, that doesn't mean you can't be friends. If someone doesn't like that they're on the Bud Light can, doesn't automatically mean they're a racist or a bigot or whatever. And if you love that they're on there, doesn't mean that you're some kind of exceptionally gifted liberal person who loves everybody. We've got to get around this a little bit. Now, on the other hand, if you said all trans people have to be killed or something, or forced to detransition or whatever bullshit that people are saying on one side, that's an existential difference for me. I can't be friends with someone like that. Likewise, I also can't be friends with someone who says that if you don't date a trans person, you're a bigot or any of this shit. That's existentially wrong to me. I can't be friends with that person. But someone who says, I'm trans, I just want to be treated like a human being, and I'm not expecting to compete in sports or something against people of the same, if they just want to be that and they just want to dress that way and live that way, fuck am I to have anything to say about it? Leave them alone. They're human beings, fucker. Leave them alone. They're not bad. They're just different. By the same token, someone who says, well, I don't like that, it grosses me out, that's their right. They have a right to feel that way. It doesn't make them a bad person. It just, you can't change what people prefer. But at the same time, if that person says that other person shouldn't exist, now we got a problem again. You see, this is the nuance. It doesn't have to be this black and white binary. Trans good, straight bad, straight good, trans bad. Stop. Just stop. Start talking again like we used to. We'd probably do a lot better pretty quickly. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. It's really not. I have a feeling the division's going to go on for at least another 5-10 years. And even if one side dominates the other, there's going to be ongoing division for a long time. And the damage that the globalists did to us with all of this is going to take generations. There's going to be whole history books written about this time, specifically the last 10 years or so, and the coming couple years. And one of the things they're going to say is that the damage this did to civilization across the board took generations to heal. And that's what's killing me inside, because I feel like people like me and Jen and Eddie, we grew up in this, as Jen puts it, the Gen X bubble down there. Those of us who grew up in that Gen X bubble, especially Gen X, I gotta say, I hate to be like an ageist or whatever. People who are in that Gen X spectrum, by and large, have a much healthier attitude about a lot of these things. We're not all worked up with different ideologies the same way that boomers and millennials onward are. Gen Z seems to be okay, but that might just be the bubble I'm in. I might be seeing just, because of the kids that I know that are friends with my son and shit. So I don't know. They seem okay. They're simultaneously, they're more libertarian than most people were, for a long time. They're pretty good with that shit. They're simultaneously right wing, but totally liberal about so many things. They don't judge people for their sexuality and shit. Good. That's how it should be. I don't know why we gotta have, we get into trouble when we start splitting hairs and trying to figure out the nuance, and we do purity spirals and, what's the word I'm looking for? Tribal shit. And we got to stop that. That's the only way forward. We've got to stop that. We have to. And I'm trying to, I'm not doing it perfectly. I'm sure a lot of you guys listen to me going, I got this fucking asshole. And a lot of you going, oh, he's right about everything. I'm not doing the best job, but I'm trying. Not many people are trying to do what I'm trying to do. And I think that's what I want to be on my tombstone. Not many people tried to do what Thorne tried to do. Holy fuck, that'd be an awesome tombstone. At least he tried. Dude, please, someone make a GoFundMe right now for Thorne's tombstone that says, at least he tried. Oh, fuck. Yes. Maiden asks, any new occult video ideas? I am so balls deep in writing or trying to write this fucking book that I've written and rewritten and started and restarted, and it's like I have, like, it's not writer's block. I know exactly the things I'm trying to talk about. It's trying to find the right way to communicate what is potentially my magnum opus. And because of everything going on in the world, I'm having that much more of a difficult time doing that, because every time I get started and it's good, then, oh, lo and behold, some crisis somewhere and it gets my attention, and then I get drawn into it and it's all bullshit. I'm not blaming it. I'm just telling you, honestly, that's a big factor. I don't feel like I can look away from the dumpster fire long enough to get it done. That doesn't mean I won't. I think, I don't know. I don't want to say for sure, but I got a good feeling about this summer. I've pretty much figured out. So originally it was meant to be like this whole path working book that was Sparta, like this other thing. I'm going to just simplify it down to a new theory of magic equivalent to when, we'll say, I don't want to give him all the credit, but when Peter Carroll, released Liber Null and Psychonaut. I'm hoping this will have an equivalent. I don't know if it'll have the same impact on the world, but I'm hoping that it will be equivalent and better, to be brutally honest, because I've read Liber Null and I've read parts of Liber Null. I didn't get to Psychonaut yet. Reading that, it's like, okay, this is very much like bare bones. And I don't agree with all of it, by the way, just so you know. But I hope it will be a sort of equivalent, and it will hopefully revolutionize things. But it's based on classical non-dual teachings, which are not commonly known. I think Ajna knows them. I think even Ajna mentioned one of the schools of non-duality that talks about this the way I do, or similar way. but I call it manifestationism, and it's an updated version of some of these older ideas, which it takes the eternalist view, not the presentist view of reality. In other words, it recognizes that this reality we see is so illusory that magic actually doesn't work the way we think. We think in terms of cause and effect. We think in terms of, if I push this domino, it falls. But I've been trying to teach you guys for years that this temporal pattern is more like reading a book, or a choose your own adventure book, or a record that has infinite tracks on it, and you could like skip around. It's more like that. So it's not that reality is moving and changing, because reality is the divine. This is not reality. This is just an appearance, a manifestation of reality. Reality is an unchanging, in other words, it's a timeless, unchanging, boundless, dimensionless, infinite, ineffable, great whatever. Brahman, Atman, Ein Sof, God, the divine, whatever you want to call it, consciousness. All that we see that appears to change is an illusion. It's a changing illusion, but there is no change in the fundamental reality. If that is true, and this is why I recommend a lot of you guys who are more into the scientific side of these things, check out Donald Hoffman, who is doing a great job of taking the metaphysics of non-duality and monism and updating them into scientific terms with math that works, that really goes a long way to rationalizing it in a way that science can approach. This is why Donald Hoffman's so important. I don't care what his politics, I don't care. I support that man 100%. I think he's completely on the right track. I don't know if he's right about all of his theories, but I think he's doing the right thing. I think he's doing good work. And a lot of his work has influenced my thinking on some levels, because it's validated my thinking. Because I come at this from a metaphysical perspective with a little bit of science. He's coming at it from a scientific perspective with a little bit of metaphysics. And I think that in the middle, there's a chance for some huge growth. And I do believe that, assuming we don't fuck ourselves with politics and shit going on, I do believe that, not in our lifetimes, but within 100 years, everything he's saying will be thought of as the foundation of a new way of thinking about reality. I really do believe that. He's going from a space-time is fundamental view into a consciousness is fundamental and space-time is emergent, which is supported by recent findings, by the way. Anybody who still treats space-time as a fundamental thing of nature is going to be very disappointed soon. The 2022 Nobel Prize that went for, objects are not locally real, that was one of the final nails in the coffin, but it wasn't the first. One of the first was the Planck scale issue, whereby you cannot prove or measure or interact or even assume that anything exists below the Planck scale, which isn't even that small. It's small to us, but from a scientific mathematical perspective, the Planck scale is not that small. It's very small, but it's not small enough. We expected that time, space, space-time was infinitely small and infinitely big in both directions, because or if not infinite, it wrapped around somehow. We're not seeing that. We're not seeing either one. We're seeing at the Planck scale, everything breaks down. We can't think of anything below that size, but it's not a singularity point. Singularities are infinitely smaller, even the Planck scale. Things broke down. So space-time as a fundamental thing can't be real. I agree with that thinking. Now, some people don't, but look up Donald Hoffman's work and the quotes that he's got, the scientists that he is quoting and their discoveries. You'll understand why space-time is doomed. That's literally the quote that matters. Space-time is doomed. It's not sustainable as the fundamental theory of reality anymore. So when space-time goes down, so does everything else that space-time is contingent upon. What you're talking about is closer to either Platonic or Vedic philosophy at that point. That's all we got left. If space-time goes, there's not much left. You have to start returning to the metaphysics and starting over from scratch. That doesn't mean science is wrong. It doesn't mean that you don't build a car the same way. But science only deals with what is empirically testable and measurable, okay? It has a hard time with anything you have to infer about that is not measurable. It can still do it to a point. This is why we have things like we know about atoms, because we can't see them, but we can measure them. So we can assert that they exist on some level. No one's denying that. What they're denying now, however, is that atoms are what they appear. So we're actually approaching a point where you could say Platonism or Neoplatonism is a better model for reality than Aristotle. See, I think what happened, I think that the elites know this, believe it or not. I think that they wanted to decouple metaphysics from science to create a very atheistic, materialistic society. That's just my pet tinfoil hat theory. Maybe Eddie will salute that flag. I think they separated metaphysics from science intentionally so that scientists, and especially people who, like me or you, who are not scientists but look up at that for information, we're bombarded with an atheistic, skeptical, materialistic, physicalistic mentality, which we have been having pounded into our heads since we were born, that that's reality and that this other stuff isn't. That Plato and Shankara and all these guys were very fanciful, but they were wrong. They're superstitious wackos. No, they were actually highly rational. More rational even than modern science by many levels of dimension and degree. It's turning out that, and don't forget, Neoplatonism or Platonism and Advaita, or the various, versions of non-duality, agree on most things, as do certain interpretations of Hermeticism. Kabbalah, all of these things agree. They've all ascertained through different means, both intellectual and spiritual. They've ascertained almost the same story, almost the same model of reality with a little bit of difference. Okay, there's differences, of course, but the fundamental oomph of it is solid for them. They all agree on it. Even science now has to start admitting, hey, maybe since space-time is not fundamental and it is an emergent property of what? What does space-time emerge out of? Well, null space, obviously a zero-dimensional or a non-dimensional or a hyperdimensional object that has no border, no center, no border. It's an existence without what we think of as existence. And what we think of existence as a projection of the mind. Well, what mind? The mind of that existence. Okay, we're starting to get to esoteric mysticism here, but it's metaphysically accurate and valid. So we're diving off this materialistic, physicalistic cliff. And a lot of what I'm doing with this book is based on that, and this I will say it's an advanced teaching in different non-dual traditions of Hinduism and monism that's not often talked about. Usually when we hear about non-duality, we are usually confronted only with the like Neo-Advaita consciousness, New Age kind of shit. And that's a good starting point for Westerners, sure. But there are teachings in various traditions that are way more than just that, okay? There's concepts of the multiverse, the idea that the divine manifests reality. It doesn't create it per se. It's because the reality is the divine, and the divine cannot be created. It is unchanging. If the divine is unchanging, infinite, timeless, formless, blah, 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 nothing can be created, nothing can be destroyed, nothing can change, okay? All of those things are illusory. Well, if they're illusory, what does that mean? Well, that means the essence of reality is timeless and permanent, and it's our perception of it that manifests as this. Just like reading a book or taking like a gemstone and turning it in your hands to see different facets of it. It's a lot like that. So, but there is a model for that no, it's not accurate, because no model can accurately depict the eternal absolute divine, okay? But you can have models that'll get you closer to an understand. Like when I say models, I don't mean a model that explains it. I mean a model that points at it so that you can relate to it better and integrate it and work within it. So this model of reality that I'm creating is called manifestationism. And it will eventually, one way or the other, just to get it out into the world, I'm going to release it one way or the other sooner or later. I want it to be in the form of a good, classy book, at least equivalent to like Become the Maelstrom, but maybe a little smaller. And that's my goal, is to get this book done this year. Maelstrom came right at me because there was no distractions in life and everything. All I had to focus on was writing the book and fun. But with everything going on crazy right now and all the drama and then trying to be a content creator on top of it, I've had a hard time. I'm over the demon shit. That's not to say I don't ever work with them anymore or anything, but I'm over that. I don't care about that. Like when people go like, talk about demons, I go, nah, not interested. Go find out for yourself. You know, I've done enough work in that direction. I'm not trying to be, you know, Pokemaster that collects them all. I'm not here for that. I never was. I was, in a way, when I was doing the Demon in Review videos, that was almost like my online grimoire. I wanted to share those things with people, and that's a decent chunk of what's in my grimoires, the stuff that I put on those videos. You know, although my grimoires are like shorthanded, it's not like I don't have it all written out like that. I put notes and stuff. But so I'm done working with most spirits. That's not to say I won't work with any of them anymore. It's just that I'm done with a lot of this stuff. I'm over the being so limited to just that spectrum of culture, you know? And that's what I mean by like, there's going to be a big rebrand soon where I'm going to be going more towards a neutral Jedi type of, you know, mentality, which is kind of where I've always been at. But for a little while there, I leaned hard into that, you know, edgy, not that I'll stop being edgy because it's built into me by default, but I really leaned hard into that edginess because I was integrating shadows. Okay. That's something people don't realize. I made a post about this on Facebook the other day where I said, the point of the left-hand path isn't to become evil and have all these demons and shit. It's to integrate your dark side. And once that's integrated, you end up being very love and light, but it's a sincere, real version of love and light, not the goody two-shoes bullshit version. Okay. The reason why people like me mock the right-hand path and the goody two-shoes love and lighters is because it's all superficial bullshit. It's just nonsense. They haven't integrated a single shadow in their life. They're still evil, toxic people, but now they're acting virtuous. That's what I mean by the love and lighters. But when you integrate your shadows and you recognize the divine as it is, and you recognize it in all things, love and light is a default position. Because that's, could you hate yourself? You know, well, some people can, but when you recognize the same divine being in all things, you have a hard time hating, you know, and when you hate, you hate more the image, not the essence, right? Like I fucking hate like some of these, you know, we'll just say on the political spectrum, I hate some of these groups and people, but ultimately, unless they're a rabid dog, okay, you guys know my attitude about that. I'm not gonna hurt them. I just think they suck. You know, that doesn't mean I don't love their essence, but I hate what they do. Sounds very Christian, doesn't it? So I hate what they do, but their essence, I'm not trying to destroy them as a being. I just want to protect myself from their insanity. And the ones that are rabid dogs, then all bets are off because that's a different story. That's like a cancer, right? You can still, when you have a rabid dog on your hands, you still love the dog, but you put it down. So when you have rabid dogs in society, you know, literal KKK neo-Nazis, extreme woke Antifa, you know, I know some people here are going to say some Antifa are good. Okay, fine. I'm sure it's not a monolith, but the ones I've seen, I don't like, you know, but I'm sure not all of them are rabid dogs, just like not everybody in MAGA is a rabid dog and not everybody. So I'm after the rabid dogs that are actively trying to destroy people and things. But even then, unless they directly, you know, have something to do with me, it's either somebody else's problem or it's not a problem. So again, once you integrate those shadows, that doesn't mean you don't still have dark tendencies or interests in edgy stuff or any of that. It's just you start going, you know what? Too much of anything is not a good thing. You know, you end up synthesizing your ego and your id, and you end up coming back together and being healed. And there's always more shadows, but those shadows aren't always going to look the same. And maybe in a few years, I'll go back hard into the dark side again. I probably will. But in the near future, I'm going to be moving more towards a dark neutral, if you will. Like, instead of like, you know, neutral evil or something. I know I was never that. But instead of that, think of it's going to be more like true neutral or chaotic neutral or something. You know, if we're doing the D&D spectrum. So, yeah, so I'm kind of done with some of this stuff, and that's going to disappoint people because I've kind of been typecast as, you know, this demon worshiping guy. I never worship demons, by the way, but as this, you know, people still come to me and say, you know, Thorne, could you teach me how to submit myself to Father Lucifer and be his servant? And it's like, like that physically hurts me. Like, no, stop, please. Don't you watch my stuff? You know, like, it drives me up a wall. I get tons of that shit, and I'm sick of it. And it's one of the reasons I kind of want to walk away from some of it too, is because aside from the people who have gotten my message or already knew what I was saying before they got me, aside from them, like, I feel like it's just an uphill battle. It's starting to get frustrating. Ooh, all right. I think I'm going to be going soon. What time is it? Oh yeah. All right. I'm going to call it a little bit early tonight. Let me scroll down. I missed a bunch of chats. CJ Angers here. More like shitter. Oh yeah, for Twitter. I'm sure that's a Twitter comment. Jen says, Antifa is what the right fears like the left fears the Proud Boys. And I wouldn't say fear. It's more like, not to disagree so much as just semantically change. It's not so much fear. It's more of a, we are shown that on the right-hand side, we are shown that as if it's this army that we're going to have to deal with or something. It's like, it's a minor, you know, look, half the people are fucking FBI. Let's be honest, right? I think Jen will back me up on this. When you're looking at TV and you're seeing some Antifa guy throwing Molotovs at a building and burning it up, there's a 50-50 chance that's an FBI agent. Well, you know what else? When you were watching January 6th, if you saw some people breaking windows and smashing through and pushing people into the building, better than 50-50 chance they were FBI. So, and that's come out. I mean, that's enough. If you know who Ray Epps is, you know that the whole fucking show is a bullshit story, right? If you know the kerfluffle about Ray Epps, the only MAGA guy that the media and the government protects is Ray Epps. Why? Don't ask questions about him, even though we've got him on camera many times saying, let's go into the building, let's attack this thing. Fuck off. Come on. You can't see through this shit. Don't be dumb. This is why I got really mad when people were like, saying, oh, all those people are traitors and they need to be this. No, fuck you. You don't know what you're talking about. You know, yes, some were bad people. Some of them deserve what's happening to them. The vast majority of them were just the wrong place at the wrong time. And they got a little rowdy. And if we're not literally persecuting the people who burned half of DC down over the summer of love, the ones who did real damage and shit and got violent, sure. But a lot of those people that are being railroaded don't deserve it at all. You know, a lot of them literally just walked through the building. That's all they did. Like literally, some of them are just in trouble for just that. So this is all, so much of this is staged. And it's really gross. And we have got to, if you're a responsible person with a sincere heart of compassion, you got to get off the tribal bandwagon now. Not to say you're not going to do it, but you got to start being mindful of it anyway. You got to be mindful of the bandwagon. And get used to the fact that this isn't as organic as it has looked all the last couple years. 90% of what so let me give you an analogy. If you've ever been to a carnival, which I have when I was younger, I haven't seen many in my later years, especially where I live, but once upon a time, carnivals were a thing, circuses were a thing, and they had sideshows and shit. Well, if you ever go to these things, they put people in the audience to get the crowd riled up. So when the ringleader, announces the new act, they've got, depending upon the size of the crowd, maybe a dozen people spread out in the crowd that will get the cheer started or the boo started. Okay. So once you understand that that's an ancient way of doing things, then you recognize that when you watch a protest, a large number of people involved in that protest are no different. They are instigators, they're agitprop, and some of them are government run. In fact, a lot of them are. There's a reason why they are loath to show the FLIR footage of a lot of these protests, because then you're going to see a lot of glowy, this is why you call them a glowy. You see a lot of glowy shit on some people. They have literal stickers and patches that are IR reactive. So when the choppers are flying around, the drones are keeping track, they know that person's an operative, an agent. They're dressed just like everybody else, but they've got that little tag on them so that the eye in the sky knows who they are and they can track them. They're out there, they're everywhere. I'm not saying they're everybody, but they're everywhere. If you go onto an online forum for the left or the right, a certain percentage of them are government shills. And you can ferret them out if you know how to argue with them, because they use almost like a script of sophistry. It's really sad because it's so easy to spot, because they're not very good arguers. They are literally trained to use sophistry to shift the dummies into what they're trying to say. Okay. So unfortunately, most people haven't been trained on rhetoric at all. So they can't spot sophistry, and they can't spot disingenuous arguments, and they can't spot when someone's just parroting a stupid argument and when they literally are trying to use one because it's off a script. And to me, it's obvious. Like, I'm sure I miss a lot, but it feels obvious to me. Like, I see them all over the place. And what you don't realize is it doesn't even have to be the FBI or the CIA. Roughly, not quite 2 decades ago, we'll say maybe a decade and a half, there was this kerfluffle that happened where, I forget which game company it was. I don't know if it was World of Warcraft or CC, the guys who make EVE Online. There was some kerfluffle where their forums were being attacked by paid trolls from another company competing in the same game space. I have a feeling it was World of Warcraft and EverQuest, but I don't remember for sure. It was something like that where they're competing for the same audience. And so they would hire trolls from like China and other countries to go into those forums and just all manner of subversion, from trolling to posting negative reviews to brigading to all that shit. It's real. You can look up these troll farms. They still exist. They're a big business, especially if you go in like third world countries. They're a big business because it's an easy way. I saw this one thing. It's literally several racks of cell phones, all integrated. And this person is running all these cell phones on all these different platforms with their own accounts. And they're running this thing, and like, they just post thousands, and now they got literal AI bots doing this. So when you're online and you're arguing with a fool, there's a pretty good chance you're arguing with a bot. And that's not limited to politics. movies are another example. Like just tonight, I popped on Twitter for a second, which I shouldn't have done because it drives me nuts. I popped on Twitter for a minute just to see if there's any headlines I missed. And trending was all this shit about Disney being mad at DeSantis, right? And whatever your views on that, doesn't matter. I'm looking at this and I'm going, okay, this is trending because Disney probably paid a bunch of bots or trolls to make a shit ton of posts about it. Okay, probably. Because when you look, you can also see a lot of the comments are bot comments, and a lot of the activity is bot comments. So it's, you know, it's people copy pasting the same. Like when I say bot, I don't necessarily mean an AI bot. I mean a person, an NPC, a shill, you know, so we call them a bot. We just simplify it, call it a bot. So yeah. Xander says they've seen a lot of bots on live streams. Yeah. Yep. Well, they used to get on my channel. We used to have every live stream, 1 or 2, like check out my porn channel. But those are the sloppy ones. I'm talking about the influencer trolls, the influencer bots too. And they're, you know, if you haven't seen them, either you haven't noticed them or you're not looking or something, because they're on different platforms more than others. Like I don't see them on YouTube as much, and I don't see them on Facebook at all that I know of. But Twitter is just rich with bots, dude. It's Elon's like, we got rid of most bots. No, you didn't, you liar. I'm going to say like at least 30-40% of Twitter is bots. I agree for the most part, Raquel. Yeah. Raquel says, I boycott Disney. They should all be ashamed of themselves. I may share this Walt Disney, who's Gemini, rolling around. Yeah, he would. My take on it is this. I've got no problem with you know, messaging in movies that have, you know, social commentary or whatever. Look, I grew up loving Star Trek, and Star Trek was a lot of social commentary. But they handled it in a non-pandering way that was intelligent, that made their point without making other people look bad and shit like that. You know, when you watch old Star Trek, you have to recognize that for a lot of people at that time, there was a lot of like older fuddy-duddies who watched that and got mad that Kirk kissed a black woman and all this shit. If you brought that forward to today, or if you brought our terminology from today back to them, those people would have called that a woke scene. They would have called that woke. But they couldn't have called it pandering because it wasn't forced. It was written into the story in a believable way that wasn't insulting to people's intelligence. It wasn't just boring pandering, and it wasn't snarky activism. They didn't sit there and be like, and if you have a problem with Kirk and Uhura kissing, you're a bigot. No, they just showed a hopeful vision of the future if we could get our shit together, and that was part of it. If Disney, for example, wants to continue down this path of social commentary, I'm fine with that, but then they need to learn to do it in a way that's not pandering and isn't so lazy. If you want to normalize LGBTQ issues, for example, there's better ways to do it than to force it down people's throat and accuse them of being a bigot if they don't like the movie because it's obvious that it's pandering. You know, like when they did the all-female Ghostbusters, you know, people didn't like the movie. And it wasn't because they were women. The fact that they were women doing tasteless, you know, vagina jokes and shit, I don't know if that's true, but that's what I heard. I didn't watch it. Was a factor, but they also just hated the movie. And when people said they didn't like the movie, they were accused of being sexist. And it's like, no, people love movies with women as the lead. That's never been the problem. Sometimes that's, you know, sometimes that's better. Look at video games. A lot of people love video games with female protagonists because, like my friend used to say, I'd rather play a chick this way I can look at her butt while we're running around instead of some dude, you know. A lot of people like playing as women, and it's not a problem. People don't have a problem with that. The problem is when you're just cramming it down people's throats and accusing them of being a bigot if they don't agree. That's when you've got a problem on your hands. I like to use the first installment. I didn't play the second installment, so I don't know. But the first installment of The Last of Us was a great example of how to do it right. Granted, it was only in the DLC. If it was part of the main game, though, it wouldn't, I think it would have been fine. The whole game, you don't know that hopefully I'm not giving you off a spoiler. The whole game, you don't know that the female protagonist, the little girl, is at least bi, possibly lesbian. You have no idea. And when it's revealed, it's done in such a natural, inoffensive, innocent, well-scripted, well-written, humane way that you really do have to be a bigot not to appreciate it, okay? When I saw that, there was not a single part of me said, oh, look at them pandering to the rainbow crowd. No, I thought, finally, they created a realistic character that they could get behind, that I could get behind, that everybody could appreciate. That's a real person who happens to be gay or whatever. This is what people want or will tolerate. What they won't tolerate is what Ajna just said. It's commercial activism. Yes, corporations are not activists. But here's the deal. Why is it suddenly such a big thing for all these corporations to be doing all these things that are really bad? Like the Dylan Mulvaney, the Miller Lite can, Levi's, another one just happened. I forget which. Well, I heard a little bird told me that one of the reasons they're doing this is because they're trying to short their stocks in advance of a collapse of the economy. It won't necessarily be like a depression, but it'll be a big enough collapse. So they're shorting their stocks so they can profit off of that collapse. And they're shorting their, if you short your stocks a certain way, it's illegal or gets you in trouble with the board. But if you just make bad business decisions and your stock goes down, you can't be accused of intentionally shorting your shit and getting into trouble. So I heard a little birdie told me that's probably one of the reasons they're doing this. That and ESG, they're being required to do this by globalist policies for advertisers. So guys, like I said to my wife tonight, we were sitting down to watch something and I'm like, why is it that every single fucking thing just has to be so heavy-handed propaganda, activistic, obnoxious bullshit? There's no respite from it. Unless it's something from the 90s or the early 2000s, there's no respite. You can't get away. You can't turn the TV on. It's not even just that they make a joke about it. It's like every single thing. And it's starting to affect my life, like YouTube's policies. Like, I'm going to read you something my wife sent me. This is, I don't know if you guys know who Z Frank 1 is. If you guys know who he is, if you don't, look him up. He's got great videos. He's one of my favorite content creators on YouTube. I don't watch him as much as I used to, but I love his shows, okay? He does these nature programs and they're funny as fuck. This is what he wrote, okay? Z Frank, and this guy, he's not right-wing or anything. It's not political. This is a legitimate problem. He says, I predict the new CEO of YouTube, Neil Mohan, will be seen as the guy that destroyed the creator economy that has built upon this platform. His focus on trying to squeeze the most money out of shorts at the expense of everything else will wind up making it almost impossible for anyone to make a living on YouTube. And the one real advantage they have as a platform in terms of their relationship with content creators, a reliable and predictable way to earn money from content, will disappear. The effect of this shift is apparent in the shape of the traffic curves. What used to be spikes followed by a slow decline in attention are now just sharp up and down. The focus is just on what is new, and as much as they pretend that shorts and longer videos are separate somehow, is absurd to imagine that they aren't part of the same zero-sum attention economy. YouTube long ago abandoned the idea of showing content to subscribers. I've noticed this. If you subscribe to a channel, you're not necessarily going to get their videos. Like, you got to go through hoops to make sure you get. How many of you guys subscribe to my channel and don't get notifications? Right? And it's not just because I'm being shadow banned. That's across the board. It's happening to everybody. So YouTube long ago abandoned the idea of showing content to its subscribers. Subscribers is a silly vanity number at this point, with almost no correlation to who is shown what. The CEO will take the platform even further from a system where you can build up a relationship with an audience, learn from them, and create culture. And he goes on to say, I'll keep on going here as long as I can, and what can we do about it, and blah, 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 blah. So the point he's making is that YouTube is basically using the excuse of competing with TikTok to push an agenda that destroys long-form content, which is where most of the dissenting opinions originate. That is the ultimate, if you're looking for the trickle-down cause, the ultimate real reason they're doing this is literally to stifle dissenting opinions so they can't get the reach they used to have. And that's not just for politics. I mean that for everything. If you don't like a Disney movie, they don't want Disney mad at YouTube. If you don't like CNN, CNN doesn't like that you watch Styx, Hex, and Hammer instead. So they're making it harder and harder and harder and harder for people like me to have a voice that people can find. And for me, it's not about the money, because I don't really make much through YouTube. There's months where I make a little bit of a bundle because every live stream might bring in $100 or something. That goes a long way. I appreciate the shit out of that. But there's plenty of months where I might make $30. Like this month, I'm not even going to make the minimum to get a withdrawal because I haven't had hardly any super chats this month at all. I think the last one I had $10. The one before that was 20. So I'm not going to get anything this month unless somebody gets paid this month and says, I'm going to pay Thorne. Like, we haven't had Patchy in a while. Usually Patchy's like donating a lot of money. And I appreciate every penny because that's hard to do right now. And people just do it, you know? But I would keep doing it. I've always said, even if there's no money in this, I'd still be doing it. Cause this is my, it's not just a hobby. It's like my outreach for my spirituality. You know, it's like my way to bring that out. And it's also my way of talking about current events and getting shit off my chest and talking to people because I'm kind of isolated in real life. I don't have a lot of people I talk to anymore over the years. So like they've all kind of disappeared. You know, I grew up very popular. And then as I got older, I became more hermit-like, you know? So, YouTube is trying to compete with TikTok. TikTok's going to go away at some point. The writing's on the wall. Both parties are trying to get rid of it for different reasons. The establishment wants to get rid of it, and in so doing, they want to create the Restrict Act, which will literally fuck free speech online 6 ways to Sunday. We can't allow it. But TikTok is a menace. It's a fucking Chinese spyware app of the extreme order. It's literally like you might as well just have a Chinese spy living in your house. But then again, one could argue Facebook and all these platforms are no different because they sell the same information to them. I guess China's just getting rid of the middleman. And they just want it all direct. But they're even worse because when you install TikTok on your phone, you basically fucked your phone. Like you've given them access to everything, even if you want to install the app. I don't know if they changed that, but the old policy was even when you install the app, they still have back doors into your phone. Like this is insane. People don't know this. Some of this is probably hyperbolic, but trust me, guys, like don't trust this shit. So YouTube is trying to compete with TikTok using shorts so that eventually when TikTok's gone, YouTube will take up the slack. And they're also using short form content to shit on the long form content, which most activism and dissent occurs, both left and right, by the way. So it's targeting both sides. Anybody who's anti-establishment or anti-globalist authoritarian or anti-any authoritarian, they don't like it because that hurts their bottom line because they're getting paid by CNN and they're getting paid by you know, whatever, all these corporations, Disney, to get preferential treatment, you know? And YouTube was awesome in the mid 2000s and even the early teens. It was fucking awesome. Once you had like that first adpocalypse, it started to go downhill. So that's why next week I'm probably going to start phasing into Rumble more because Rumble's more accessible, I think, than BitChute for people. You get a lot less of like, you know, the weird shit on Rumble. There's a lot of mainstream creators that are opening up Rumble accounts and slowly using both. I think everybody should be using both. You know, I think that if you're a content creator, you got to be on multiple platforms at this point, because you can't trust half of them and the other half are too small to really rely on. So everybody should be poaching viewers to new platforms, and that's what I've been trying to do. I just haven't been doing a very good job of it. I think with Rumble, we'll see how it goes, but if I have my druthers next week, I will do half the stream here on YouTube and the other half on Rumble. I'll always do both. I'll always do cross-platform as long as I'm able to do it. But I wanna make so that Rumble has a different type of content on it. And you don't even need an account on Rumble to watch it, by the way. You just need it to comment. So if you want to watch my stream but not necessarily comment on it, you can join me on Rumble without joining it if you don't like Rumble. You don't have to give them a dime of your attention, you know? So, but I'm trying to diversify, because this is unsustainable, the bullshit that's going on, and I'm tired of trying to make it work. You know, I'm shadow banned here, and it's very disheartening to try to make content when you're shadow banned. CJ says, DH, your streams could be better if you had Subway Surfers going next to your stream. What does that mean, Subway Surfers? What does that mean? Is that like a I need more graphics on the screen? Is that what you're saying? Look, I'm using the non-frills, the non-frills, what's it called? Streamlabs OBS. Okay, I'm not paying for anything here. I'm on a shoestring budget. So I could pay for better graphics. They have add-ons that cost money that I could buy. Some of them look pretty dope. Maybe I'll do that, but I need to, I don't know. I need to get back into the game, you know. I feel like right now the most important thing for me to do is to be that voice in the darkness, that voice in the wilderness that isn't insane and is telling you things that's not like what everybody else is telling you. You know, if I got up here on my soapbox and was all MAGA, 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 Trump, 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 or the opposite of that, that's just more echo chamber. And my goal is to start trying to unite people against a common enemy that we all have. And most of us actually do know that. It's just we're having a hard time coming together against it. A lot of people know it. A lot of people know in their bones what's going on. They just have a different selection of who the good guys and bad guys are. And that's hard to get around the way it's gone. But I think over the next year or two, it's going to reach a point where a lot of people are going to be like, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, they lied to me. And you're going to see a lot of people flip-flop or be demoralized and be out of the fight. And I predict a lot of that's going to come from the liberal left side. I just do. I see it already. I see it in people that were very hardcore one way months ago, years ago, and are now very soft on it because they realize they were lied to. It doesn't mean that they've changed their fundamental values, but they realize they've been manipulated into fighting a war that doesn't serve them. And I think that over the next year or so, that's going to be magnified exponentially, like the Durham thing that just came out and all this other stuff that's coming out. That's just the beginning. We got a year and a half to the election, and we're already having stuff pour out that would completely shift everything tectonically in our system. And this is just the beginning. Next year is going to be on fucking fire. They'll probably release another fucking pandemic next year or something. Like it's really going to be fucking lit next year. I keep predicting a big, and maybe it's just we're all desensitized now because everything I see is just surreal as shit, and it's going to keep getting worse and worse and worse, and we're probably going to hit a crisis that is going to make 9/11 look like an episode of Cheers, you know. And all hell's going to break loose. So we'll see how right that prediction is. All I know is this is a time of tremendous change. And we've got to start looking at each other like human beings again, because if we don't, we may not make it through it. So, all right, I'm getting off my soapbox. Tonight was a very political stream. For those of you who don't like that, I'm sorry. For those of you who do, you're welcome. But I think it's necessary. If you know me, you know that, believe it or not, as much as it seems otherwise, the last thing I want to talk about is politics. I want to talk about spirituality, philosophy, ghosts, video games, movies. I want to talk about fun stuff. I don't want to talk about this horrible, disgusting, toxic shit. But, you know, people don't know. Like, people think like Shaolin monks or something. They see them and they're like, oh, how peaceful. Yes, they're very peaceful, but if you invade their town or something, they're going to fight you. And, you know, just because you are a pacifist, just because you're enlightened, just because you're liberated, just because you're Zen, doesn't mean you're a goddamn doormat that lets the fucking rabid dogs eat your family. So, yeah, I think that's where I'm going to leave it. And Ajna look like they're tapping out. So that's a good sign. Guys, I thank you so much for tonight. Thank you for watching. Thank you for having a good conversation with each other. Thank you for respecting each other. Thank you for treating each other like human goddamn beings, even if you don't agree with each other on everything. You guys are the future. You guys give me hope. You guys on my channel, on my streams, you literally give me hope. Every time I do one of these streams and I see the comments that you guys are talking about and I see where you're at, you know, with a handful of minor exceptions, you guys literally give me hope for the future. And I hope that people like us shape that future. That's why I chose that meme as the title pick for this stream. People like us who feel so outcast and are looking at this going, what the fuck? Our job is going to be to help fix this. I'm telling you right now, if you're just going to run with your head in the sand, you're wasting the reason you were incarnated. You're here to help shift this timeline, to help people. One final thing. There's a timeline shift going on. Everybody knows it who knows about these things. There's a timeline shift going on. There's a split. And it's a binary split, but that binary looks more like a gradient of different options with a hard line in the middle separating them. One of them's going off in the Great Reset, one's going off in the Great Awakening. And it's a spectrum. But if you're on the one side, you're going to end up with freedom and prosperity eventually, or at least freedom, or at least you'll see the Great Reset foiled. On the other side, you go into dystopia. Now, there's potential for dystopia on either side, but trust me, the split you want to be on is the Great Awakening split. You don't want to be on the Reset split, because that's just going to go deeper into ignorance, darkness, and slavery. You want to be on the Great Awakening split. And that's the age of Aquarius we've been promised. The elites are trying to take that Aquarius shift and make it benefit them. Free humanity needs to take that back and make it for us like it was supposed to be, like it's always going to be. Okay? So you guys who are here, I have hope that we're all going to go off in that Great Awakening split. But if we don't, and we all end up in gulags and shit, well, you'll know where to find me. I'll be the one, you know, playing chess and talking philosophy in the corner in between, you know, chain gangs. So hopefully we don't end up there. But if we do, I hope I'm with you guys. So, all right, that's it. Have a good night, everybody. I will see you next week. Yeah. And if you haven't, and you're cool, and you're not going to be a dick, join my Discord. So, all right. Good night, everybody.